All right, hey there traders, Sam here, TradeDevils-Indicators.com. In this video, we're going to focus on some new features that have just recently been added into our marquee product, which is Algo Studio Pro. Of course, we're working on the Ninja version here. This will be exactly the same on the Quant Tower version. I trade on Ninja. I'm just more comfortable over here. But everything I'm showcasing here for those of you that are QT users will be exactly the same in terms of the feature update to Algo Studio Pro. So let's just dig into it. Now, as I always do, I'm just using I'm just going to use Friday's data, right? Here's the open and close here that's outlined here from the initial balance indicator, so open to close. Kind of a wild day. We had the middle of the day drop and then the recovery. And there's plenty of trades on here because I have Algo Studio loaded. And I have this simple algo already designed and running here. We're going to pick it apart here, and that's how I'm going to show you these new features. So this is a 1 minute ES. I've got an up-down volume on the low and my toolbar as I always do in any video. Oh, pardon me. I do also have the auto fibs on the right here, but that won't be a factor in this demo here of these new features. Okay, so let's bring over Algo Studio Pro here and let's dig into this. So the new features are here. We're going to focus on two or three new features that have been added here. And the new feature here is the sequence block. We're going to, for lack of a better term, we're just going to call this a block. Now, prior versions here, the ands, and I think many of you may be used to working over here, where we have the and, the or, the at least, the flip-flop, if, then, else, conditions, all of that. Now, the new one here is sequence. But what you're going to find here is that because of the way some of the coding has been oriented here to highlight this sequence block, you're going to find it much more, I think, effective to work over here on the design side. Because if I go to, here, one thing you're going to notice here is that when I click on the chart here, the Algo Studio Pro goes away. So let's go to right here. Okay, so to make this easier for you all, I'm going to open this up here. Okay, so I'm going to highlight this bar right here, right? And you'll note here there's a highlight stripe that will be tied to the information that's going to showcase in the designer. Now, when you're designing an algo, that little stripe will be very useful because it's going to enable you to understand whether or not your qualifications for the algo to produce an output have happened. Once you're no longer in the build mode, you're going to want to take that off because every time you click on it, you're going to get a stripe on it. And you can just turn it to transparent in the indicator settings of Algo Studio Pro. But when you're in the design process here, as I'm going to highlight that bar right there, this is going to be very useful because it's going to give you the insight that you can't get over here in logic. You can't get it, which is why you're going to want to work over here on the design side. So what you see here now, the new features here, in addition to the block here of sequence, are the color codes that are now attached to the conditions or the rules, as it would be here in the designer, that you're adding into your algo. So let me start with kind of a broad stroke of what we're trying to do. The algo itself, it couldn't be any simpler, right? All we're looking for is within a 10-bar range, and we'll dig into that more precisely. Within that 10 bar, I want at least 4 bars to have produced higher highs and higher lows, and then I want to pull back to the 9 EMA. If we continue higher and we break the next bar's high, I'm looking for that kind of price movement. Right? I mean, that's essentially all the market ever does, right? Every trading decision you've ever made can be boiled down to just that, right? We get a swing, we have a retrace. Now, which side's going to break, the low or the high, right? That there is no trade decision ever that can't be boiled down to just that, right? It's a swing, it's a retrace. Which side's going to break, low or the high? So that's all we're doing here. I mean, again, it's drop dead simple. So swing, retrace. Now the retrace, the key to the retrace here is that we go to the 9 EMA and touch it or get just below it without going too deep. We want it to go in that little pocket here. I've got the 19 on there just because I've used that as a stop filter. You could do the same thing with just the 9. But just to give you the idea, the visual idea, right? So this is what we're trying to do right here. The pullback in here, and then on the break of the high of the pullback bar, I'm entering. So you can see an example here. Well, let's go over to the studio, or to the Algo Studio Pro Designer and take a look at this. So first thing I'm going to do is highlight the sequence block, which of course I would get to right here. If I wanted to add another one, I would just bring it over, and there's the sequence block. Well, you'll note here that this is the default now is within 10 bars. Now you can change that, right? You can get creative here, but this is a good starting point as you're learning how to work with this new sequence block. Okay, so 10 bars is a good starting point. So let's go back here, and with this understanding of the very basic nature of what we're trying to do here, there you see let's get rid of that. The stripe here can be a little bit annoying, but very useful when you're designing the algo. Okay, so I'm going to start on this bar right here where you can see the highlight. So I know I have a 10-bar window for this sequence to occur. So if I count forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I've got all of the ingredients here. Now let's go look at those specifically, because the sequence in those 10 bars, I don't need the 4-bar sequence to happen 4 bars in a row. Sometimes it will. Like here's an example of here on the left where you can see plenty of bars went in the same direction. But it's not a requirement for this algo in this sequencing here that it be 4 consecutive bars. So for example, push this off again. You see it right here. So I get higher high, higher than the prior bar. Then I get an inside bar. Then I get a higher high. Then I get another inside bar. Then I get a higher high, higher high, higher high. Now I've got the retrace. So the point being here, while you're creating this, you're essentially telling it within that 10-bar window, do I get 4 bars out of the 10 where I get a higher high, a green bar and a higher high, pardon me, where the high is greater than the high of the previous bar, right? So I'm getting a higher high. That's all I'm looking for. It does not have to happen consecutively. It has to happen within that 10-bar window. There has to be a sequence. Now, once that sequence has completed, thus the sequencing here, so I've got current bar is green and the high is higher than the high of the previous bar. Yes, that goes into the and. If that happens, the one way you might think of this is like a gate, right? So if that happens, does the first gate open? Well, if that happens, great. Okay, I've got one of the 4 that I need. Now I go to the second one. Current bar is green, the high is greater than the high of the previous bar. Do I get that? Well, you'll note here on the bar that I'm on, I don't get any openings here of the gates. But conceptually, I want you to understand that what we're trying to do here is just say, okay, am I getting a green bar and the high higher than the previous bar within 10 bars? Right? So if I take this off, it's kind of tricky to showcase it and then take it to the chart. Again, here's a good example. Let me go over here to a short. So here's another example here. Again, I think it's easier to show it to you on the chart and then go to the designer and kind of work in that order. So if I come here and I start on this candle, if I go forward, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So anywhere within this block of 10 bars, if I get that sequence of 4 candles here where I've got a red bar in this case, and a low lower than the previous bar's low, which you clearly get here. Then I get the retrace. I tap the 9 EMA, and then on the next bar, do I break the low? Well, I don't here. I get a double. I get the same thing here because the condition stays in effect here. It's still a qualifying bar right here. Now, do I break the low of that bar? I do, and there's the entry. So you'll note here that I've got the 4 qualifying bars of the sequence. Then I get the uptrend here, but because of the way the algo is designed, where the low is where I have to get beyond the 9 EMA, and then on the next bar I need to break the high. Right. So if I do that here, you see a nice example. Well, here are my qualifying candles. Here's the retrace. I don't break the low here. Here's my qualifying candle because I've got multiple bars qualifying as a potential entry. I break the low here, there's the entry. So if we come back here and look at it this way, those gates had to open because here are the conditions. I need this and this and this and this to happen within 10 bars. If that happens, then that opens the gates for the sequence to create the short. right? Red being the short. I get the output, trade is executed. But you'll note here, right, it's not 4 consecutive bars. That's the point I'm trying to, perhaps I'm overemphasizing, because that threw me a little bit when I was first looking at this going, oh, do we need, okay, we don't need 4 in a row. I can have an inside bar. I can have just a double. So you see it here. Again, we've got these inside bars. Here's the qualifier. I get under the 9 EMA, and then as I come out, right, well, this one doesn't qualify because I don't break, I don't have the sequencing here. This one qualifies. Again, just trying to make sure this is clear. Within those 10 candles, right, it's not 4 in a row. Here's the pivot. Here's the retrace. I get under the 9 EMA, and as I come out, do I break the high of the candle that went below the 9 EMA? I do, thus entry. And there's the result. Okay, so again, coming back to this, now, of course, is always the case with a video like this. It's going to be infinitely easier for you to reconcile this in your own mind by playing with it a little bit. It took me a minute just to say, okay, how do I set this up? Right, this goes into an AND block, and then that goes into the sequence block. It's just a little trial and error, as is always the case with a product like this. There's so much depth and sophistication to it that getting hands-on is ultimately how you're going to really string this all together and understand it to where you can create your own algos. But you get the basic idea here that the sequence is a series of gates that have to open before we get an output. So all of these conditions have to be met. Now you can tweak a little bit here. Could be low is lower than the 9 EMA. You could here, this is a modification. I've tweaked it a couple of times. And then all I would need next for the next bar to qualify is that the high is greater than the EMA. So we don't want to be going down below too far beyond the 9 EMA. So if I get in there, I get under it, and then I come out. That's what I'm essentially saying here. That I've come under the 9 EMA, and then I'm coming out. So it's really a very precise pullback, but the 9 EMA is, oh God, it's very, very, very popular among traders, whether it's futures or equities or crypto. It's very, very, very common. So I just wanted to use something that everybody might recognize, 9 EMA, and I just added the 19 here just so I had a buffer. So once you get into trying to optimize this, you've got some choices with regards to exits. In this case here, again, I'm not trying to create the world's greatest algo, but I just used the 19 as an exit. So if I got to close below the 19, that would void an entry. And if I was in the trade and I didn't make my target, but I had a candle that closed below the 19, that would be the exit. That would be the stop, right? Or the trailing stop, whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's easier to create over there and then kind of check your work over here and say, okay, I followed this. But what you lose are all those color codes. So here I am on this bar here. I can look at that here and just randomly, okay, well, I can look at it and say, okay, but I've got out of 10 of the last 10 bars, I've got higher highs and higher lows and green bars. So as you look here, you can see that all of those sequences have, all of the requirements of the sequence have taken place, but I don't get an output. So let's open this up. There's no output. Blue just means neutral, means no output. So why? Well, I've got all of the conditions. Why don't I get a trade? Well, I don't have the retrace to the 9, right? So as you see here, this is red. Sorry, gate doesn't open. I don't get the retrace to the 9, which would have been the qualifier to take the trade. Let me push this off for a second. I got to go down here, over here. Do I get another one? I do. Here's another one we can look at just to kind of reinforce this here. Again, if I go back within the last 10 bars, do I have green bars and higher highs and higher lows? Do I get a retrace to the 9? I do. And then as I come out of this, I have multiple bars qualifying. Right, the green stripe just means it's qualified. The condition for entry, which is where we're going to head next, is that we break the high of the qualifying bar. So on this candle right here, we get an inside bar. We don't get a break of the high. It's on the next bar because these all qualify per the sequencer. They all qualify, but this is the candle that breaks the high of the prior bar. Now, I'm going to use that as a segue to go over to the ATM to show you a couple of the other new features. Now, these had, in previous versions, these were built into the indicator itself. TDI Dev has moved it over here into the ATM for additional flexibility in terms of how you're designing. So in this algo, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, I've got RTH hours highlighted. I just use these randomly because I'm not trying to optimize this. at this moment. So I'm going to use a break of the previous bar's high for my entry, right? So that's the condition we have here, which is why here, even though these are qualifying bars, we don't get an entry. Same here, here. These are all qualifying. This is qualifying. It's not until we break this high that I get the entry into the trade. That's the qualifier for entry, and the entry will be at a break of the prior bar's high. This will be at a limit order. Now that's a change from the prior version where all of the entries were at the close of one bar, open of the next at the market. The additional feature that we've offered here, in addition to at break of the previous bar high, is to enter with a limit order. Right? So just notice here, right, how that changed when I changed it to enter at a limit order. Right? Well, now I've got some new trades that are showcasing here, that you're seeing show up here because of that change that I made. Right? The requirement wasn't that I break the previous high; it's just that I've got a limit order. Right? So you're gonna find different results if I push that off, but just by making that change. Now, in this particular algo here, as it was originally designed, the key feature is that we break the high of the prior bar. But you might find you get better, for whatever reason, you might find you get better results, or the algo that you want to design doesn't need that requirement. You just want to enter at a limit order. Okay, well that's always a trade-off, right? When you're entering a limit order, you're going to get a better fill, more likely, right? A fill closer to what would be a perfect fill, but you risk not getting filled, right? That's the trade-off. Now the default here is always going to be plus or minus 2 ticks. You can keep it to 1, you can go to 4, right? It's entirely up to you. You start cranking that up, 3, 4. Okay, well now you might as well, you're at 4 ticks in the ES, you might as well be at a limit order here, but you're going to note, right? More qualification, perhaps more trades. You may or may not want that, but that limit order feature here is significant, right? Again, it's always a trade-off. You're going to likely not be on board for some trades, right? Because you're not going to get filled. The market's going to move too quickly. But when you do get filled, you're going to get a better fill. You'd be shocked at the difference that makes in the performance of an algo. It's really dramatic, particularly if you're back testing over 60, 90 days, right? Just that little tweak can make a substantial difference. So it requires a little bit of trial and error and getting in there and then deciding for yourself which one is better. Now, a new feature that will be coming, I think, this following week, will be to enhance that even further, so it won't be a requirement that it break the next bar's high, but that we can extend, just as we do with indicators and some of the other things that we have built into ASP. It doesn't require that it be the following bar. So we can extend, much like we do with the sequence here. It doesn't need to be the next bar. It could be within the next 4 bars, as long as we break the high. Right? That's going to open it up even further and get you a little bit closer to that traditional flag pattern here, where we get a swing and a retrace. Now, it may not break the bar high here, but it may break it 3 bars later. I still want that trade. Well, let me rephrase that. You may still want that trade. Right now, we don't have the capability, right, as it's designed. Per what I just showed you, it's got to be a break of the next bar, right? So the previous bar high has to break. Thus the swing retrace, but you're going to miss some trades. So when I put that on here, there are going to be some spots you're going to miss. The point is not take it, make it. The point is to give you maximum flexibility to the algo design process. Right, so this just continues to enhance that here. Again, all of this stays the same. But these two, this is a pretty significant new feature. And then with this over here, with the sequencing here, where I can qualify. Now, the other thing with these red-green makes it much easier, depending on the complexity of your algo. You often, right, I run into this myself. I'm trying to create something here, and I'm like, why is that not firing here? Because the way I've designed it, at least with what I've created, my understanding would be that it would qualify, but it's not qualifying. Why? Well, that's where these green, red, orange means it qualifies for both a long and a short. This is going to be a huge, huge benefit to the algo creation process, because I can come back to it. I can click on any bar. I got to go do this again. I can click on any bar just as I did there, and it's going to tell what I see at this bar. Well, I've got a lot of qualifications here. I've got a lot of qualifications here. Oh, shit. I mean, red being, oh, good here. Oh, I've got, everything's good, except I don't get an output. So something's missing. So I'm looking here. So do I have 4 bars? Yes. Do I tap the EMA? Yes. Do I break the low? Yeah. But I know no entry. Why? Right, that's often the question as you're designing algos, and this is where you can come back to this and go, oh, I see. What? Okay, well, I didn't get the X, Y, and Z condition to be met, so no output, and that's all the blue means. It's just neutral. It means nothing happened, no signal. So the point being, whenever you're on one of these, you can always just look at it over here and go, okay, do I have this correctly set up here? Do I have this correctly set up? Right? Do I get a low? Does the high greater than the high of the EMA? Oh, I'm just using an EMA slope. It's just a 9 and a 9 and a 19. That's all I'm doing here. Again, this is drop dead simple algo. But it's about the flexibility here that we're giving you here, and the new ways that you can qualify and understand your own algo here by this color coding here. Because if you see one, you're like, oh, I had that backwards. Or, again, it's time saver. Right, help you, as opposed you come back here and you look at this and go, oh, I'm not sure what I have wrong. Here you can see it by the color coding. What's missing? What do I have that's not right? That's the hope here with that. So with that, I will sign off here. It's always the case, right? If you're an owner, right, you'll get an update on this. If you're considering, the trial is a great place to start. And you watch a video like this, you're going to get pieces of it, but you really got to dig in there and play with it, and do a little trial there and do some of this, and why didn't this qualify and why didn't that qualify, and play with the ATM and maybe run some optimization, see if you can get a good output here and determine whether it's something you want to trade. So you can always come over to our website and get a download, as is with all the indicators. You get a 7-day full working version so that you've got at least five trading days to work with the product. This 5 days would perhaps get you started, but Algo Studio Pro is incredibly deep and full-featured product, so that would give you a little bit of a taste with it. And of course, we have lots of content online in terms of algo creation, lots of content within the Discord here, and you'll find many other users, sharing ideas. And this will be a big plus into the algo creation and design process. So with that, we hope you'll enjoy it. Hope you'll find good success with it. As is always, we're very open to ongoing input as to how we can make the product better for you. That's our only goal, and to give you something that you determine is a good investment for your capital here, and something that would be profitable for you. Okay, with that, I'm going to sign off. Wish you guys good trading, and we'll see you on the next one.